Nature. It's so beautiful. So we have to do our part to put something beautiful on the roads. The new Mazda 3.
And because we do read all the comments of the viewers and we take them into account, somebody said that we should have a red Mazda 3 on the test. And now we do. And it's a beauty. But it's not just pretty to look at, it's also got a lot of tech hidden everywhere.
It really has some nice lines overall.
So first things first, the front. You've got LEDs. Everything is LEDs, even the blinkers, which is very nice, of course, looks very modern. And you also have the option of some new adaptive LEDs now as well. And of course, you've got the standard, you've got your ultrasonic sensors, radar cruise control, you've got your various cameras, blah, blah, blah. And of course, I love how aggressive this part looks. 18-inch alloy wheels, and I think they look very, very good in this color. It's sort of machine silver gray-ish. And for the longest time, I wasn't really sure about this rear part, but I have to say this, you have to look at it in person. It looks really good. And at the back, we've got full LEDs everywhere. Usually nowadays, when you buy a car, you maybe get the daylight LEDs and maybe the headlights, but the blinkers are still halogens. Mazda said, no more. Everything is modern now. And I love how aggressive this looks. I think the only cars that really look this aggressive at the back are maybe some Alfa Romeos. And I also like how wide it is, and these exhaust pipes, which are not fake. Anywhere you look at it, I love it.
It's quite interesting that the four-door version looks a fair bit different at the rear. The lights aren't so aggressive. The interior of the 3 has been thoroughly changed. No longer does it look to its bigger brother 6. It's now its own luxurious design. You can wrap the seats in pleather or real leather. The hatch offers red, while the sedan offers white leather.
I've stopped here in this really quite beautiful place. I've got fields around me, I've got forests, I've got big mountains with snow that you probably cannot see right now. It's a lovely day, it's quite warm, and it's just so nice. And I think that fits the car quite well as well, because the Mazda 3, this new Mazda 3, was probably one of the better, nice surprises in the past few years. It's just such a nice place to be before we even drive it. It doesn't matter if you sit on the driver's seat or if you sit on the co-driver's seat. It's just everything is so nice and soft to the touch and very nicely machined and made. I mean, all the buttons, I've already said this in my preview of the Mazda 3, all the buttons are so lovely to press, so mechanical. I mean, Mazda went so far even to make the little buttons with which you move your rear view mirrors to be so lovely and nice to the touch, as well as these buttons up here, which control the dome lights. That's quality. So now it's time to actually drive the Mazda 3, and the easiest thing to say would be that it's lovely. I know that doesn't really tell you much, but it really is lovely, whether you're just sitting in here or driving it. now we're in a town here, so I cannot really drive sportily, but you can drive sportily and it won't really let you down. It's quite good in the corners. But then again, if you want to just calm down and drive it slowly, it'll do that happily as well. And even if the road surface like this one isn't that great, it's quite damaged, it's very comfortable inside. So it's quite surprising that the suspension does both things very well. So I'm quite happy with that. Otherwise, I've got this 6-speed manual gearbox here, which is just fantastic. It's so mechanical and notchy. I love it. I love shifting it. And also the steering wheel. It's very nice, very soft, a bit thick, and that's a good thing because it does remind me of the BMW's M steering wheel, and that one is a very, very nice one to have in your hands. Don't get any ideas. So now I have to talk about the technology that I've mentioned before. The first thing I'd like to mention is the cameras. Now, Mazdas, of course, had rear view cameras before. That's nothing new. But what is new now is that they've decided for this Mazda 3 to put a camera at the back, a camera at the front, and 2 cameras on the side. So now you have that bird's eye view of the car, if you wish. And what's even more important, in my opinion, is that whereas the cameras before were pretty grainy and low resolution, they weren't really that useful, unfortunately. Mazda has apparently heard me and has now put in, and I kid you not, cameras that, at least here on the screen, I would be completely happy to record this video on. And I'm not just talking about the rear view camera, the front one is very high resolution as well. I think they're the same ones actually. And they're amazing quality. You can see everything in crystal clear detail, in color, and it's fantastic. Nicely done, Mazda. Nicely done. And on the infotainment screen, which is nice now, big and high resolution, I've got a camera and some sensors, some infrared stuff, and apparently, after about 20 minutes of driving, the car and the system start watching you. It's like a stalker or something. And if you start dozing off, or if you start using your phone, apparently, it will warn you. Now, I haven't managed to get it to do any of that. First of all, because I never fall asleep in the car. And secondly, because I don't use my phone in the car. But I actually tried tricking it into doing something. So, because apparently the system watches where your eyes are looking and the shape of your mouth, and I don't know whether you're drooling or not, but I haven't been able to trick it. I guess the system is too smart for me. Mazda. So let's talk about the engine now. Under the bonnet is a 2-liter naturally aspirated petrol engine with about 130 horsepower. Now, I've been told that apparently this is actually a 160 horsepower engine, that it's identical, just detuned. So if you get it chipped, you apparently get a 165 horsepower engine, but you know, that's up to you. Anyway, it's quite an interesting engine for several reasons, mainly because of the technology. One of the interesting things is the Sky Active Start-Stop, which means that, you know, the usual start-stop system, you come to a stop and the engine shuts off. Wow, that guy was in a hurry. And the engine shuts off. Fair enough. But for Mazda, it's not enough that it just shuts off. It has to shut off in a very specific way. And it does that so the system makes sure that the pistons stop at the exact place where they will be the easiest and most effective to start up again. Which means, in reality, that when the car starts up again, or the engine starts up again, there's almost no vibration. And I kid you not, you have to try this yourself. It's beautiful. The car starts without you even noticing most of the time. So that's very, very nice. The other system that they're using is cylinder deactivation. Now, cylinder deactivation technology is nothing new, of course. It's been done before, but not a lot of manufacturers decide to do so. I think mostly because of reliability issues. Now, I don't know how Mazda will fare here, but we'll see. What it does mean is that when you're driving normally and slowly, don't even have to be slowly, but as long as the car doesn't need a lot of power, the system will deactivate 2 of the cylinders. Ooh, come on, doggy. And you can hear that. You can definitely hear when it goes back to 2 cylinders, and you're basically driving a deux cheval, a Citroen 2CV. It's quite funny, and it's quite interesting. But the result of this is that, for example, right now, my average consumption is 5.1 liters per 100 kilometers, and that's mostly city and suburb driving. And 5.1 is really, really good for a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. That's very good. And a lot of it does have to do with the cylinder deactivation, because if you look at the instant consumption, whenever you hear that change when the 2 cylinders shut off, the consumption, the instant consumption, drops by about 1 to 1.5 liters per 100 kilometers, and that's a lot. So now if you think about that cylinder deactivation plus the upcoming HCCI engine, which is supposed to be about 30% more efficient or less thirsty, that's going to be a very, very interesting result. Okay, so we are on a motorway now, doing motorway speeds, or a freeway if you want to call it, I'm not really sure. Anyway, at 130 kilometers per hour, the car does feel a little bit different, and I don't mean that it's wobbly or uncontrollable or anything like that. It's fine, it's comfortable, it's smooth, it's nice, even though my colleague says that he doesn't quite like the seats as much. I find them quite comfortable, personally, so, you know, you better try that out yourself before you buy it. But at 130 kilometers per hour, the 2-liter atmospheric engine is a little bit noisier, so you can hear it. I'm almost at 3,000, it's 2,800 RPMs at 130 kilometers per hour. I wouldn't say it'll get annoying, but it's certainly perceptible. But on longer stints, if you're traveling somewhere, I don't think it would be annoying. But definitely this car would be perhaps more suited to countries with lower speed limits on highways like the USA, for example, where it's 55 to 60 miles per hour, which is almost 100 kilometers per hour, even though the roads aren't as smooth usually. So, swings and roundabouts. But I don't really complain here. I cannot really complain. So all of the techie stuff that I've mentioned, that's just the tip of the iceberg in this car, really. There's so much more that I haven't mentioned, including all the plethora of sensors that make the car drive more safely and nicely, especially if you get the all-wheel drive version like in the Mazda 6, which has so many sensors that actually anticipate what's going to happen. For example, if you have your wipers on, the car will know that, oh, it's probably snowing or it's raining, so I'm going to turn on the all-wheel drive system sooner rather than later, and so on. And then I've got like this projection head-up display, for example, and it's not projected on a piece of plastic, it's on the windscreen like it should be. I've got this big infotainment screen with navigation. I've got heated seats, heated steering wheel. I've got a digital instrument cluster. It's just LEDs at the front and at the back. There's so much stuff. And the other manufacturers are really going to have to put their heads together to offer this much car for this amount of money like the Mazda 3 does. Let's talk about the infotainment system now, which is completely new. It's got a bigger screen, and what's even more important is that it is much higher resolution, so everything is much crisper and nicer. This control button over here is also new. So if I go into the navigation, for example, I'm here in a garage, so we don't have the sun shining everywhere and making the picture even worse. But yeah, the navigation is really quite nice. It's crisp, that has a high contrast, it's very nice, and it also is pretty smooth when you're driving, so much better than before, even though, you know, it wasn't bad before either. Let's go into the camera, for example. I said that the cameras are much higher resolution now. It probably won't be evident on the video, but trust me, if you sit in this car yourself, it is such a big difference with the cameras they used before. I also have a wide angle camera at the front, so if, for example, if you're trying to get out of a driveway or something and you don't have a lot of vision left and right, this is quite useful. I've used it a couple of times, it works. And of course, you've got the side cameras, so you don't hit a curb if you're parking. And of course, the rear view camera, which is also very high resolution. I mean, this is such a huge improvement over before. I also have to say that the communication, connecting my phone through the Bluetooth, this was the easiest and fastest connection I've ever done in a car. It doesn't matter what I've driven before, Porsches, Audis, Volkswagens, Renaults, it doesn't matter. This was the easiest and fastest way to connect it and start playing music. So, wow, Mazda, well done. One more thing I wanted to mention with the instrument cluster. The center one is digital, and the tachometer on the left, and the water temperature and the fuel level on the right are analog. But when I first sat in this car, I really thought that the analog instruments were actually digital, because the graphics and the lighting are so nice, so sorted out, that I really thought they were digital, and that's it. And they look beautiful.
The base model, if you can really call it base with how much it offers, starts at €20,000.